How's it going, YouTube? It's been a good chunk of time since you've heard from me last. Just a lot of life stuff going up and down, just relationships with people and all that. But all is good. In the span of that time, I got a new car, which is kind of cuckoo to me. I got the band and I have been making some new songs. So we've been really focusing on getting like this whole album written out and complete and stuff. It's been a very complicated process, but something that I've thoroughly enjoyed doing. Just a lot of new stuff and a lot of stuff that I needed time for. So I appreciate you waiting on my presence to return. And I hope that you guys enjoy this video. Today we're getting into The Genius of Tools Numa by Drumeo. I'm very excited because hopefully this is a video of Carey explaining how he did everything, the purpose of all of the complexity, and just I'm kind of nerding out about it, so I can't wait to get into it. So we're going to do that right now. So just a heads up, we do pause and talk a lot. So you will be, we will be pausing and talking and probably breaking down things. And from my perspective as a drummer in a metal band, so we'll get right into it.
If you play the right things and support the music and play songs rather than beats, it has infinite possibilities and can take people to other places.
His drumming on Numa, perfect example of how incredibly tasteful and musical Danny's drumming is.
The way that song moves and makes you feel like by the end of like those 13 minutes or however long it is, like you've been on a journey.
That is some crazy drumming work.
This video looks familiar.
12 minutes long, and it's packed with everything we love about progressive music. An evolving structure, a hypnotic groove, and rhythms that just pull you in. But for drummers, Numa isn't just another Tool song. It's a whole new benchmark. Carey's playing on this track is next level, from the dynamic builds and complicated grooves to those
Bro, that's not next level. That's like 3 levels above next level.
insane polyrhythmic patterns in the instrumental. Join us as we dive into the genius of Numa.
Please.
It's a logical progression that when you go through a song, if people are prepared, and that's your job to kind of set up these nuances and the changes as the music progresses, like lead people into the new space.
Tool songs are known for their layers both rhythmically and lyrically. But Numa feels a little bit different, and you can feel the time, intention, and precision that went into every single detail of writing it. The word Numa comes from Greek, and it means breath or spirit. And once you know that, you start to hear the song in a whole new way. Danny's drum part doesn't just groove, it breathes with the music, almost like it's alive.
From a frustration point of view, an exhale can be that release of tension that you're hanging on to and internalizing. But it can also be a deep breath and a calm exhale of just moving on through something going, oh, I don't know why I was hanging on to that. I'm the one holding on to it. It is not holding on to me.
That's what sets Carey apart. He's never just
Man,
playing
that's
patterns
so
to fill
real.
space. Every
That's
note
so
he plays
real.
has intention.
There's an understanding a lot of times when it comes to like your spiritual journey or just your journey as a human being, period, when it comes to releasing things. There's so much of life that you hold on to that you don't necessarily need to carry, and it I wouldn't say it allows us, but it reminds us that maybe we don't need to carry that. Maybe there's too much that we're carrying right now, and we need to let go of what we don't need to carry and really understand what we don't need to carry and just let it go. And things that don't serve you or your highest good, and things that don't bring purpose, and there's no purpose to holding on to them. It's like holding on to your breath. You're meant to hold on to it for a certain amount of time and then let it go, just as he was saying. So very, very deep meanings behind this.
For Danny, drumming isn't just about keeping time or showing off technique. It's about energy, movement, and channeling something bigger through the kit.
It's just basic philosophies and ideas of how things are put together and what's harmonic and what vibrates in your soul, I guess. I mean, it gets kind of metaphysical and weird at some point, but it's really subjective too.
And that philosophy runs through every part of Numa. The groove doesn't just sit in one place, it evolves rhythmically and dynamically.
So the drums are, they can get pretty boring as a solo instrument. If you play the right things and support the music and play songs rather than beats, it has infinite possibilities and can take people to other places.
In the intro section, he moves through a flurry of subdivisions like 16th note triplets all the way down to 8th notes.
Yeah, going from doubles to singles is nuts to me.
From there, he launches into one of the main rhythmic ideas that reappears throughout the entire song. It's a pretty simple hand pattern, it's right, right, left. But even though the hand pattern seems basic, pay close attention to what's happening in the cross stick part, where he's starting quiet, he's getting louder, and then he even gets quieter again towards the end. It's a subtle detail that most drummers overlook at this part.
It adds dynamicism to it, and it's like doing a cymbal roll in anything that involves like a big band performance or something like that. It brings a different form of, I guess, elevated dynamicism, should I say, when it comes to that, because you're allowing something to fade in, so you're starting it soft, crescendoing it, and then letting it slowly taper off, and it's very tasteful in the way that he does it, and it's not used enough in my opinion, because usually it's like this part's just going to be forte, this part's going to be piano, this part's, and then you get to where you're like, okay, well, maybe we need to throw more of like a composing type of perspective behind a piece. And that's really kind of where I feel Danny Carey shines, is because he takes into consideration the different dynamics of musicianship in his writing. And that's what really, really impresses me about him.
This sets the stage for what's to come later in the song, and more than anything, it shows how Danny approaches the drums, not just as an instrument, but as a tool for expression.
Yes,
When most
sir.
drummers think of Numa, their minds go straight to that groove, the one that Danny plays just after the 1 minute mark. It's built around a really cool hi-hat pattern that gives the groove a lot of momentum because of the 16th notes that Danny adds in. The kick and snare are pretty straightforward on the surface, but it's the hi-hat phrasing that makes this groove so hypnotic and ultimately challenging to play. Danny plays the hi-hat part with these subtle accents and hi-hat barks that create a kind of push and pull. Like most Tool songs, Numa features lots of odd time signatures and
so
phrases that
tasty.
don't follow a conventional structure. But when we break these down into smaller pieces, we can start to understand them a bit easier. So when I was first learning this song, what helped me the most was thinking of this part as a 3-bar phrase moving from 12/8 to 11/8 to 10/8. And that's 33 beats in total. So you'll see in front of me right now, I've got 33 pieces, and we're gonna split these into groups of 12, 11, and 10.
Dude, did you know that the pieces fit?
Now that we've got this split into 12/8, 11/8, and 10/8, we can break this down even further by breaking all of these bars into groups of 6/8 and 5/8. So now you can see we broke those down even further. We've got 2 groups of 6 making up the 12/8 bar. We have a group of 5 and a group of 6 making up the 11. And we have 2 groups of 5 making up the bar of 10/8. Now, if you've seen the video of Mike Portnoy learning this song, this is the code he's trying to figure out in the first part of the video.
I think once I crack the code, everything else will fall into place, assuming they stick to those time signatures. Because
Assuming you cracked the code, brother. I remember this.
times, like what we'll do in Dream Theaters, we'll have this wacky code, and once you crack it, then we'll f with it some more later.
Now, with the time signatures we're working with, we can break things down even further. So, for example, when you look at the bars of 6/8, we can think of these as 2 groups of 3. Or when we're thinking in 5/8, we can use a group of 2 and a group of 3. Or based on the phrasing of the music, we could also have a group of 3 followed by a group of 2. And all of this is going to be dictated by what's happening in the song. So that's the main code we're working with in Numa, and right now let's check out how it works with the song. Beyond the time signatures, there's a lot going on here, especially on the hi-hats, and specifically watch for the subtle accents and open hi-hat barks that line up with the bass line. So from what I've seen, this is one of the parts in the song that trips up a lot of drummers, and we wanted to make sure you can lock this part in and start jamming the track on your own kit. And that's why we put together a full step-by-step lesson breaking it all down, where you and I can practice each of these parts slowly, build up the tempo, and you'll be able to...
Yeah, I wish I could read music. I can attempt my best. When I see sheet music, my brain just starts trying to kill itself. Because the most complicated my music career got was like high school band when I was in the pit, and learning to read music during that time was crazy. Because like not only do I have to learn to count, I have to learn to count what the beats are gonna be. And to me, that's still a complicated process that I've got to work on. But I don't know, because like when it comes to the writing process, I don't, jot down on like a empty page of sheet music. I make, and I just make what feels good to me, good to the song, feels right, and so trying to do it on paper.
To follow along with all the on-screen notation the entire time. We've also done the same thing with our Genius of Tom Sawyer and Chop Suey episodes, and tons of drummers are getting their practice time in. If you want to check out these lessons, you can click the link down in the description to try them out for free. Once the first verse section hits, we hear Danny playing a variation of this groove with more triplets and accents on the hi-hats.
Oh my god, the triplets. This is foreign Chinese to me. Like, I might as well be looking at another language right now. Like, I recognize what is what. Like, I obviously know that these are the closed hi-hats. This is an accent right here to an open hi-hat. This is your bass. This is your snare. This is a rest, because I guess it's just absolutely needed to put a rest symbol there. And I think that might be a flam right there. Yep.
When we get to the chorus, Danny returns to the
right.
initial groove, except this time he starts throwing in some more drum fills. At the end of this section, it's the first time Danny pulls out the double pedals to play some hand-to-foot combinations, and he also starts ramping up the intensity with some big flams and unison hits around the toms.
You'll have to excuse notifications if they go off.
During the post-chorus, Danny switches over to the ride cymbal this time to brighten things up. The groove here is a little bit more straightforward than some of the verse sections, with the underlying feel being in straight eighth notes.
I don't know, bro. Having the ride at that angle is crazy to me. Like, everybody's setup's gonna be different, but I don't want to go up here for my ride. Okay, you know what? People are spamming. I'm gonna have to... Sorry about that. Back to the video. That pause right there is crazy to me. Like this right here. Like what an interesting way to fill the space. because that means he knows that this fill right here, just this part right here, or no, I'm sorry, that this whole fill, duplicating it again, is going to take up the exact amount of time that he needs to fucking get to this point here and end the measure perfectly. Like, that is just bonkers.
Moving ahead to the interlude, Danny starts to modify the original hi-hat groove even more than he did before. He adds in some extra accents and open hi-hats which make the rhythm feel like something totally different. Honestly, I thought this part was in a completely different time signature until I transcribed it and realized it's still following the same structure as the verse. And I think this is exactly why we all love Tool.
It's just clever, man. It's just so clever.
For now, let's move on to about halfway through the song where things really start to get crazy.
It's not so much like it's a real mathematical thing, but those polyrhythms just, they have like a heavy natural groove and sort of a melody. The rhythms turn into almost melodies at a certain point, you know, when there's different rhythms happening at the same time. I've always been into that.
Once that main groove is locked in, the song really starts to build.
See, that's the thing about him, is how nuts he is. Because not only are you dealing with like the 5 and 6 and 3 and 3 and 5 and all that shit kind of timing, he's also throwing polyrhythms into that timing, which makes it sound even more complicated, which just is bonkers to me that someone's reached that level. And I just wonder, like, the amount of psilocybin this man is possibly taking while writing drums, because I have to be on another level to understand that. And to be honest, if I ever tried to break this song down and understand it myself, I would just probably have to just be on shrooms. Like, that is crazy.
Build.
That's so mean of a rhythm right there.
Notice how Danny shifts his right hand over to the wave drum here, using a tabla as the primary sound. The same underlying groove is still driving, but now his hands are split between the electronics and the acoustic drums. Also pay close attention to how he uses his left hand for those hi-hat barks. So in this case, he's moving from the snare drum up to the centered hi-hats. It's a subtle twist on one of the main grooves we've heard already in this song, adding another layer of coordination. Once the second post-chorus kicks in, Danny shows off some more of his trademark drum fills, especially those free-flowing 6-stroke rolls all around the kit.
I love me some 6-stroke rolls.
Now let's pause for just 1 second. Now, if you thought the first half of the song was crazy, this is where shit really gets insane. This instrumental section is where Danny starts exploring some of the most mind-bending drum parts of the entire song. We've got layers of rhythms, different sounds, shifting patterns, and full-on polymetric phrasing on display. And the part that really showcases all of this starts around the 6-minute mark.
Just that alone. Doing 4 on the floor with your foot on the hi-hat while doing a right, left frickin' rhythm on your hands. That alone it takes a while. That's why they call him the octopus man.
The first thing you'll notice is the repeating hand pattern, and it's the same 3-note grouping from the intro, right, right, left. And just like before, the left hand is moving dynamically between a soft and loud cross stick, creating momentum and making the drum part feel like it's breathing. In the studio version of the song, Danny isn't playing the left foot like he is in the live video, so we're just gonna lock in the hand pattern right now.
Yep, see, crescendo and a decrescendo.
Then Danny drops the cross stick and he starts cycling between his first 2 rack toms with his left hand while he's keeping that wave drum pattern going on his right side. He also brings in the kick to line up with some of Justin's bass notes, and just like that, you're not just playing a groove anymore, you're stepping into some polymetric territory.
Yeah, no, that's... You imagine him having to take the time to learn this to be able to perform it on a video?
The next step is adding a 4-on-the-floor kick drum pattern while playing the same groupings on the wave drum. And at the same time, you'll start cycling between 3 of the acoustic toms with your left hand. So we're going to move from the 8 to the 10 to the rototom. With his hands, Danny's playing repeated Swiss Army triplets, a rudiment that you've probably heard in a bunch of other Tool songs
Swiss
like
triplets.
Rosetta Stone. And as you can see, this is one that's built around the same right, right, left sticking we've been using throughout the track. If you want to dive deeper into the Rosetta Stone groove, I actually filmed a full breakdown of it a few years ago on the Drumeo channel, and in that video I break down every part of the groove, including how Danny uses the right, right, left sticking in this polyrhythmic idea. Traditionally, this rudiment starts with a flam, but when Danny plays it up to speed in this context, the flam feels a little bit more like a unison stroke, both hands hitting at the same time, just on different drums. What creates the tension in this drum part is that it takes 3 full bars before the hand pattern resolves back to beat 1. If you've ever practiced 3/4 polyrhythms, this is a similar idea in motion, but executed over a longer time frame and orchestrated across a massive drum kit with a...
Not only that, but not only is he doing 4 on the floor with the bass, but he's also doing the offbeat with the hi-hat. So doots, 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 while doing Swiss triplets around the kit. That is just... I can't imagine the homework I would have to do to get that. Like, that is so much work and dedication to building the type of climax that is just insane. Like, and it's such a long and drawn out, because the song is a very long song, but it's so drawn out that he's doing all these different things and then implementing different elements of dynamicism of drumming to each different part of the crescendo and climax. Like, it is crazy. Ugh.
Acoustic and electronic layers.
I don't play drums with shoes on.
And believe it or not, that's just the beginning. As the section keeps building, Danny starts moving that sticking pattern all around the drum kit, jumping between his mandala pads, acoustic toms, and all kinds of percussive textures like tabla and conga sounds. Not only is he playing groups of 3 over a 4/4 pulse, but he's also messing around with the length of his phrases. Sometimes it's cycles of 5, 4, or 3. I think even in the live video, he's all the way up to groups of 7. The crazy thing is, you don't even need to understand the math behind it to feel the tension building in the song. That's what makes this section so powerful. Yes, it's technical, but it also hits on an emotional level, and it actually changes how the music feels to the listener.
I want to know what kind of snare he uses, because to me that looks like the bell brass Tama snare that I actually watched recently in Gabe's video, which is a $4,000 snare, and I just loved the sound that came from it, but $4,000 for a snare.
So I'm not even going to try to demonstrate that full section. We'll leave that to Danny Carey. But if you want to start wrapping your head around this final level of the groove,
me too, brother,
a great
me
place
too.
to start is by practicing cycles of 2 with your right hand. In this case, we'll just play between the wave drum and the first mandala. And then in your left hand, moving between groups of 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, between a few of the acoustic toms and all of the Mandala pads. You can really take this as far as you want. You can mix and match and practice cycling between all the groupings in either hand. And just for fun for this demo, we're going to try adding in our left foot on steady quarter notes as well, just like Danny does in the live video. As this section hits its peak, Danny's fully locked in and back on the acoustic kit, hammering out snare and crash cymbal accents over a steady 16th note kick pattern. And on top of that, he's ripping through a flurry of triplet bass drum fills, which is pretty cool and adds some tension when there's 16th notes happening on the kicks and triplets in the hands. The final drum part we'll look at is also pretty wild.
Gravy.
Danny's moving in and out of different themes, rhythms, and fills he's set up throughout the entire song already. It's the perfect way to wrap up this instrumental section of the song. Once again, the phrasing of the riffs shift a little bit, but in terms of structure, we're still working with the same 33-beat code we've laid out earlier in the verses when Danny was playing the main hi-hat groove. The time signatures might look a little bit different, but that's just to match the phrasing of the riffs and the drum parts. Also, don't forget to turn your snare wires on for this part.
Ah, yes.
When this section finally resolves, it feels like you just went through some kind of crazy experience, and that's the genius of Danny's approach. It's not just about flexing coordination and technique.
Dude,
it's
his
about
writing
using those
is a
skills to
crazy
build tension and
experience.
tell a story. This part of the song is a big reason why Numa has become a new benchmark in rock and metal. But none of this would be possible without the right gear, which we'll dive into next.
Oh boy.
The beauty of the mandalas is it knows from the center to the edge, like where you're hitting it, and that you can apply that parameter to whatever you want, like be it panning, opening filters, pitch change, or it's up to your imagination.
We can't talk about Danny Carey's drumming without talking about his kit setup, because every drum, electronic pad, and cymbal, they all have a purpose. Danny uses a hybrid setup that's custom built for everything he does with Tool. His drum kit features sonar shells paired with Paiste cymbals, along with 7 custom configured Mandala pads, a wave drum, Roland Octapad and hand sonic, a 14-inch rototom, and a ton of other gear to bring that Tool sound to life. When it comes to Danny's kit, probably the most talked about piece of gear on the entire setup are the Mandala pads, and you can see I have 4 of them over here, 3 of them over here, and even when we did a video a few years ago on the genius of Danny Carey, it was...
So I'm guessing they have those little rings around to kind of just tell you the different zones and different textures of sound that you're going to get when you hit those each of those different areas. It probably gives you a different dynamic when it comes to literally the sound of the drum and how it would be in real life. It
was the most talked about piece of gear in the comment section, so we're going to dive into those a little bit right now. So these may just look like ordinary electronic pads, but they're pretty complex, and you'll see each of them have 4 different colored zones, so all 4 of those rings can be programmed separately. Not only that, they can actually be split into quadrants. So we could divide this entire pad into 4 quadrants and have separate sounds in each quadrant. And on top of that, you'll see that the rim is actually divided into 9 different sections. So you don't just get one rim sound, you can actually have 9 different sounds on the outside.
Oh
but what's
my
really interesting is how Danny actually programs the pads for what he does with Tool. He chooses to use 3 zones instead of 4, so 2 of those rings are going to be combined into 1 zone. He also turns off the rim triggers and controllers as well as the slide and press controllers. So we've done the same with everything you've heard throughout this video, and shout.
It's probably because he doesn't need that much complexity. He just needs the 3 zones.
Shout out to the Mandala team for setting these up exactly like Danny does.
They're the greatest tool for me to have, like when writing, because I can load in an infinite number of samples. It's up to me. All I have to do is click a button and I have a whole new arsenal of sounds for every song that I play. And that's when I play live, it's the same thing. Just with a click of a button, every tune to tune, I have a different sound in every one of my 7 pads.
So when Danny's
I find him weirdly attractive. I don't know why, but I find Danny Carey kind of attractive.
playing those
About being real.
left stickings in the instrumental section, it's not just about moving around the toms. He's actually moving the voices between the electronics and the acoustic drums, triggering tabla samples on one side of the kit and moving to other percussion sounds on the mandalas. And then on the left side, he's moving around from the acoustic toms and incorporating the electronics as well. And I think that just goes to show how Danny is such a master at working both electronics and acoustic drums into one setup. While we couldn't track down every single piece of gear Danny uses for this specific video, we've done our best to match the configuration and electronics as closely as possible. We're using my Gretsch Broadcaster shells, Istanbul Agop cymbals, bells, and a gong, including some custom stuff they built for this video, and the same Evans drumheads that Danny uses live with Tool. We also want to shout out Lowboy Custom Beaters for making some Tool-inspired bass drum beaters for the kit. Now, one thing you may have noticed about Danny's drum kits over the years is how they're set up very symmetrical. With the hi-hats in the center, we've got the ride cymbal and the china pretty much mirroring each other, the centered crash cymbals, and this just reflects how Danny views rhythm. And all of this is designed for Danny to be able to move around the kit completely effortlessly, playing anything he wants on the left side, anything he wants on the right side, and he's got everything he needs ready to go.
Ergonomically, it makes a lot more sense for me to try to set things up where it's even as possible. And it's been nice kind of having my hi-hat there. At first, I kind of just did it out of necessity. I needed that space over there for my electronic pads and stuff. But a lot of benefits came out of having it like that. You know, it's just so easy to get to the hi-hat with your right hand rather than have to cross over, and I could go ahead and wail on the snare harder.
You know, now that I think about that, that kind of makes a lot more sense ergonomically, you know, because I mean, I can only hit so hard on the snare. And then in one of our songs, I'm doing, I guess, I wouldn't even really call it blast beats, but it's just like, it's like a kind of rhythm. And it's like I'm going down with the hi-hat hand and then coming up with the snare hand, and they're just doing, and it's counterbalancing, you know, what I got to do. So I literally have to hold my hand further away from outside of the hitting range of where I hit the snare with my hi-hat hand. So it's outside of the realm. So I could really understand putting the hi-hat there when you can just, I mean, fucking just jackhammer that shit. But I don't have a rack. So that's something I'm kind of limited on. I'm going to have to stick to traditional drum setup for now.
Now, for any of you watching who have never tried playing with your hi-hats in the center of your kit, it's a bit of a trip at the beginning, but I will say it does open up the possibilities where you can play the hi-hats with your right hand, with your left hand on the snare without crossing over. But you can also do the same if you wanted to open up and go with your left hand on the hats, right hand on the snare. You can really move around the kit however you want without crossing over, and you can see how Danny's setup
I'm gonna have
really
to
does
think about
impact
that.
the parts that he's playing with Tool. If you've ever seen Danny live, you know how seamlessly he transitions between the electronic pads and all the acoustic drums and cymbals on his kit. And I think Numa is the perfect example of this, because when you listen to the instrumental section where he's moving all around the kit, you really can't even tell when he's moving to the pads or when he's on the acoustic kit. Some of it could be how the kit is mixed, but I think a lot of it goes to Danny and how he actually plays the kit and unifies all this into one instrument.
Wow. Kind of renews my faith in humankind to know there's long attention spans left out there that can listen to a 12-minute song.
Numa has already become a modern rite of passage for drummers. Released in 2019, Fear Inoculum marked Tool's return after a 13-year hiatus. Expectations were sky high, and somehow they exceeded them. Numa stood out immediately, not just for its length or atmosphere, but because of Danny's drumming.
Danny Carey, I mean, he's obviously one of the most creative drummers out there right now, and his drumming is just so musical. His ability to play these polyrhythms he's one of the best drummers out there that I've ever heard doing it. The fact that he could break his limbs into different feels to be playing in 3 and 5 and 4 all simultaneously.
I mean, he's Danny Carey, right? There's only Danny Carey. He is colorful, he is expressive and different and explosive, and he's really nailed like that time signature. You know, he kind of owns it now.
Danny Carey's one of my favorite all-time drummers, and I think he really represents a new wave in drumming.
God, Numa, like, I mean, Danny Carey is probably my favorite drummer of all time. He changed my life sonically. His approach to drumming as like an artistic voice, and it not just being like the guy that's playing beats, like you're part of the musical experience.
Yeah.
And you're part of creating those dynamics.
He's got all this stuff and all this, but it's used in the right places and the right times. And it's very, very musical, and it's like just an orchestral masterpiece of what he's doing. And that's Danny.
Yes.
Danny's laying that down. And
Yes.
just giving that foundation.
You know, Danny's an incredible player. Tool is an incredible band, and certainly been a fan for an extremely long time. And no matter whether it's Numa or any of the tracks from even the early Tool days, he's always been one of the shining stars in this percussion industry family.
Numa's just crazy, and it was just full of just huge epic songs like that, and that one was always my favorite. Great song. Put my dad through hell.
Taking the Numa challenge at Drumeo was obviously one of the most difficult challenges I've ever done on the drums, and that was just a perfect example of how incredibly tasteful and musical Danny's drumming is.
When Numa dropped, it quickly became a go-to song for drummers to cover. YouTube was flooded with drummers trying to break down every groove, polyrhythm, and fill. And then when Vic Firth released the multicam video of Danny playing it live, that was a game changer. Drummers everywhere could finally see what had only been heard before in one of the rare videos of Danny playing drums on the internet that luckily wasn't filmed in 360p. What's even more impressive was that Danny was over 60 years old when he recorded this, still innovating decades later.
I mean, for the record, Danny Carey is one of the most creative drummers I've ever heard. So whatever, I mean, this is going to be impossible.
He's a great guy, super humble. One thing I really respect about him is he's still sort of pushing the boundaries. He's open to getting out of his own comfort zone and trying completely new things.
Despite all his excellence and skill behind the kit, Danny stays incredibly humble. He's always the first to credit his drum heroes whenever he's in the spotlight.
As artists, you know, we're all influenced by the people that come before us, and for me, it's all the great drum gods, I suppose, that come before, and I do my best to channel them every time I'm working. Namely, John Bonham, Tony Williams.
Yeah.
And, recently, my good friend Neil Peart.
Danny didn't just leave his mark with Numa, he created a blueprint for future generations of drummers to aspire to. Well, there you have it. That's the genius of Numa, a song that's a testament to the fact that Danny Carey doesn't just play the drums, he creates music and composes on them. His mind-bending polyrhythms, dynamic playing, and incredible orchestration make this track a masterclass in drumming, and it's proof that Danny is truly one of the most visionary musicians of our time. I remember hearing this song when Fear Inoculum first came out, and I was instantly hooked by Danny's groove in the verse. At first, I had no idea how to count it or what that repeating pattern was, but that curiosity sparked a journey that's lasted years and led to hours and hours of practice. Even today, every time I go back to it, I always find new things to work on. And once again, if you want to dive deeper into these parts and get some practice time in yourself, remember you can join me inside of Drumeo and we'll work through all of these Numa parts together, one thing at a time. Now, down in the comments, let me know one thing that you've learned from listening to Numa and Danny Carey's drumming. And also stay tuned for the next episode of the Genius Of series where we're diving into one of the most legendary Charlie Watts drum parts. We're going to be looking at Get Off My Cloud by the Rolling Stones. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.
Wow. Yeah, no, absolutely. That song deserved this video. Danny deserved this video because it's just bonkers. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to this reaction. Danny Carey deserves all the props in the world for his expression of music, because that's all music is an expression of the internal human experience that we're choosing to put down and put out into a different vibration, which is sound. So it's quite interesting to see how Danny does it, and not only that, but just how he does it in such a complex way. It's so articulate, I would say, and very, I struggle to find words right now because it's just so intricate and complicated, but at the same time it keeps the simplicity of the same rhythm through the whole song. He's just going nuts the whole time. So I don't know what else to say. The music speaks for itself. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'm glad that I'm back. I've been really inspired to do more YouTube again, a lot more consistently this time around, hopefully. But I'll have you guys hold me to it. Soon we'll be getting into a new reaction. We got another reaction for Baby Metal and Slaughter to Prevail. So thank you. Look forward to that video. And also, if you are interested, I do stream on Twitch, the Gamerverse official on Twitch. I'll drop a link below, and come join us in the evenings when we have good old fun on random games and just chill with my boys. So we appreciate you guys. I appreciate your presence and attention towards this video, and look forward to more coming soon. Peace, guys.